Centered in the square carpet of green plastic turf, a Japanese teenager sat behind a C-shaped console, reading a textbook. The white fiberglass coffins were racked in a framework of industrial scaffolding. 6 tiers of coffins, 10 coffins on a side. Case nodded in the boy's direction and limped across the plastic grass to the nearest ladder. The compound was roofed with cheap laminated matting that rattled in a strong wind and leaked when it rained. But the coffins were reasonably difficult to open without a key. The expansion grate catwalk vibrated with his weight as he edged his way along the third tier to number 92. The coffins were 3 meters long, the oval hatches a meter wide, and just under a meter and a half tall. He fed his key into the slot and waited for verification from the house computer. Magnetic bolts thudded reassuringly as the hatch rose vertically to a creak of a spring. Fluorescence flickered on as he crawled in, pulling the hatch shut behind him and slapping the panel that activated the manual latch. There was nothing in number 92 but a standard Hitachi pocket computer and a small white styrofoam cooler chest. The cooler contained the remnants of 3 10-kilo slabs of dry ice, carefully wrapped in paper that delayed evaporation, and a spun aluminum lab flask. Crouching on the brown Temperfoam slab that had both the floor and bed, Case took out Shin's 22 from his pocket and put it on top of the cooler. Then he took off his jacket. The coffin's terminal was modded into one concave wall. Opposite a panel listing house rules in 7 languages. Case took the pink handset from a cradle and punched a Hong Kong number from memory. He let it ring 5 times, then hung up. His buyer for the 3 megabytes of hot RAM in the Hitachi wasn't taking calls. He punched a Tokyo number in Shinjuku. A woman answered, something in Japanese. "Snake Man there?" A moment. "Very good to hear from you," said Snake Man, coming in through the extension. "I've been expecting your call." "I got the music you wanted," Case said, glancing at the cooler. "I'm very glad to hear that. We have a cash flow problem. Can you front?" "Oh, man, I really need that money bad." Snake Man hung up. "You shit," Case said to the humming receiver. He stared at the little Hitachi computer and his cheap little pistol. "Iffy," he said. "It's all looking very iffy tonight." Case walked into the chat an hour before dawn. Both hands in his pockets of his jacket. One held the rented pistol, the other the aluminum flask. Rats was at the rear table, drinking water from a beer pitcher. His 120 kilos of doughy flesh tilted against the wall in a creaking chair. A Brazilian kid named Kurt was on his bar, tending a thin crowd of mostly silent drunks. Case's plan. Bratz's plastic arm buzzed as he raised his pitcher and drank. His shaven head was filmed with sweat. "You look bad, old friend," he said, flashing the wet ruin of his teeth. "I'm doing just fine," said Case, and he grinned like a skull. "Super fine." He sagged into the chair opposite Rats, hands still in his pockets. "And you wander back and forth in this portable bomb shelter built of booze and ups, sure. Proof against the grosser emotions, yeah? Why don't you get off my case, Rats? You seen Wage?" "Proof against fear and being alone," the bartender continued. "Listen to the fear. Maybe it's your friend. You hear anything about a fight in the arcade tonight, Rats? Somebody hurt?" "Crazy cut a security man." He shrugged. "A girl, they say." "I gotta talk to Wage, Rats. Rats' mouth narrowed, compressed into a single line. He was looking past Case towards the entrance. "I think you are about to." Case had a sudden flash of the shuriken in the window, and the speed sang in his head. The pistol in his hand was slippery with sweat. Had a wage? Rat said, slowly extending the pink manipulator as if he expected it to be shaken. How great a pleasure. Too seldom do you humor us. Case turned his head and looked up into Wade's face. It was tanned and an unforgettable mask. The eyes were vat-grown sea-green Mekong transplants. Wade wore a suit of gunmetal silk and a simple bracelet of platinum on either wrist. He was flanked by his Joe-boys, nearly identical young men, their arms and shoulders bulging with grafted muscle. How are you doing, Case? Gentlemen, said Rats, picking up the table's heaped ashtray with a pink plastic claw. I want no trouble here. The ashtray was made of thick, shatterproof plastic, and it advertised a Sincato beer. Rats crushed it smoothly, butts and shards of green plastic cascading onto the tabletop. You understand? Hey, sweetheart, said one of the Joe-boys. Want to try that thing on me? Don't bother aiming for the legs, Kurt, Rat said, his tone conservative. Case glanced across the room and saw the Brazilian standing on the bar, aiming a Smith & Wesson riot gun at the trio. The thing's barrel, made of paper-thin alloy wrapped with a kilo of glass filament, was wide enough to swallow a fist. The skeletal magazine revealed 5 fat orange cartridges, subsonic sandbag jellies.